Heidi here from Rain Country. God is good all the time. Well, I'm standing at a little bit different angle than you'd normally see when I'm here in my kitchen shooting videos, because I wanted to make sure that I got my hot plates, my blender into this shot at least, though there are other things in here like a refrigerator and my toaster oven that do get run on solar power. So you can also see these lights up here. All the string lights are run off solar power, and currently I even have my ring light here running on solar power because I have a solar power outlet right over here behind the behind my toaster oven actually, and that's what the fridge and toaster oven are plugged into. Then I have an extension cord that runs over this way that I plug anything here into, such as the blender and this particular hot plate right here. So when I don't have a hot enough fire going in the wood stove to be able to cook something on the top of it, then this time of year I will resort to the hot plates. Now I have more information on this and how we use our solar power. I've done a couple videos through the years, and I'll link to the most recent one down below. So it is about living partially off grid, because the overhead light up here is public power, because there's no way I could plug that into solar power because the way it's set up, but I still use it when I'm shooting videos because the more light I can get in here, the better. But today is more about, I wanted to explain, and to be honest, I'm very nervous about shooting this video. But I promise you guys I was going to tell you a little bit more about what happened this past year. And this is one of those situations I'm really glad we had the public power to fall back on. So how we're set up is the solar power is something that we use in emergencies during the winter because we don't get enough solar power to depend on it. But when we get a power outage, which is usually in the winter, we can fall back on that. But as we get into this time of the year, as we're getting a lot more solar collection, there's a lot we can run. We can run almost everything off of our solar power. Anyway, I go into all that detail in that video. I'll link to down below. I don't know why I'm getting into it now. But I just, it's kind of a precursor for what I want to talk about, because last year it was a super massive disappointment. And I've been very reluctant to share the name of the company, and I'm still scared to do it because I want you to understand first the arrangement. So if you're looking at getting solar and you're thinking about going with this particular company, I feel like I need to be honest and let you know who it was, so you can really consider and look and, hear it from our side what happened, but also understand the arrangement that was made. And there's just a lot of things that we don't understand because we just haven't been given a very good explanation. Over a year ago now, there was a spokesperson for the company that approached us and said, hey, we can get you set up with some solar, or at least, we already have the solar panels, so we don't need those, but, a new battery setup. And our old batteries, they were definitely getting old. We still had a battery bank. It still worked, but, those batteries were just old. They just didn't hold the power the way they once did. So we were pretty excited to be able to possibly get a major overhaul and upgrade to our setup, so that even through the winter we could be more dependent on that and not the public power. And so we were pretty excited, and from there we were handed over to some specific people within the company that we were emailing with back and forth. They were asking questions about, how much do we need? How big is our area? And so on and so forth. And then the arrangement was made that we would get all this stuff without actual monetary charge, but it would obviously be in exchange for doing some videos on our setup. The promise was made. We have a list, we still have a copy of all the things that we were going to get. Again, we weren't getting the solar panels because that we already have, that we had purchased years ago, little at a time. We purchased everything for our solar setup, by the way, all ourselves. So we paid cash for everything, but we just built on it a little bit at a time. So this would have just been a massive upgrade that, especially in our very dark and rainy area, would have been really, really helpful. But the one problem was our power room. It's where we also where I also filter the water, the rainwater that we collect. It was too small for the bank that was going to be put in. We needed a bigger wall for everything to be installed on. And so once the agreement was made, Patrick told them that I just need to expand this room out so that we can house it. So he got all the right measurements. I mean, there was a lot of communication going on back and forth. And he did that. But that did cost money and time on our part. We had to pay for the new materials, and Pat had to put in the work. And when the company called us or emailed us and said, okay, we got all your stuff ready, we're going to bring it out. When's a good time? Patrick says, well, I need time to finish out this room, because it was going to take him at least a couple of weeks, because he had to knock a wall out and just rebuild everything in there. In fact, he did a series of videos. I think it's 3 or 4 part series that I'll link to down below if you'd like to see it, of the whole, you know, him putting all this stuff together because of the promise that was made. That's why we put the money and time into expanding that room. Once he got done with it and we were ready for them to bring the stuff out, we emailed them, nothing. Waited a couple weeks, emailed them again, thinking, okay, and not just one person, we emailed a whole group of them. So it's not like somebody was on vacation, somebody else would definitely be getting that email. So it was CC'd to all of them. And I'm thinking like 4 or 5 different people. Waited, still nothing. And this went on for a while. We got handed back maybe a month after that, back to the original spokesperson. Though we were getting excuses, we never got any real answers. We kept getting these excuses, but in the meantime, we were watching another big channel that's actually smaller than ours, but they get more views. And we were watching them get their same stuff put in, and they're constantly talking about it all the time. And I'm just like, okay, wow. What's going on? I mean, it was okay for them. And so I tried to ask a few questions of this spokesperson. I got a couple of answers. I'm like, okay, well, I guess that makes sense. But what never made sense to me was why the sudden, we're just not going to talk about this anymore. And why it took us constantly hounding. So how are things coming? You know, a month or 2 would go by, sometimes 2 months. So how are things coming? Because initially we kind of were given the impression, oh yeah, you know, this is just taking time. This is just taking time. That's what we kept getting told. It's just, you know, we got some things, we got some kinks we need to iron out. It's just taking time. And the very last communication we had, Patrick went ahead and shot the email out to everybody again, because he wanted to make sure everybody knew. We still are trying to figure out what's happening here. Why have you stopped communicating with us altogether? And we got one email that says, I will call you. And that was a couple months ago. And nothing. And what we believe is that they're just hoping we would give up and just forget about it. Now, we do know there was another channel that was made similar promises and nothing came through for them either. And they just decided they weren't interested by this point and they gave up themselves. And I did talk directly to them, and there was just a lot of weirdness about the whole thing. Now, the reason I'm really reluctant to give the name is because they could still be a stellar company. They still could have some really great product. And I think it's very likely they do. I've only so far seen one other channel talk about it. Maybe there's more. I just don't have time to watch all that stuff. And they seem, at any rate, I know they've had their channel for just almost as long as I have. They seem like they're honest people. They seem to really like it. You know, that's all I can say. I wouldn't know from experience because we've never had the opportunity like we were promised. And it has now been over a year with the constant sort of blowing us off, not just ignoring us altogether after all these promises were made. And they seemed really excited to work with us. So why suddenly did it just all come to a halt? We have no idea. We know the excuses were given, but they don't seem to really hold water with other things that we've heard and seen going on, that I'm like, these excuses don't make any sense. Our thoughts were that they probably figured that we had a couple of different ideas, that maybe even though this other channel is smaller than ours, since they get a lot more views per video, maybe they decided it wasn't worth doing business with us that way. Or maybe this was my first thought, is once they realized how far out and remote we are, they probably decided they didn't want to make that trip and haul all that stuff out here and install it and so on. That's what I'm guessing, because that's common. This is why, as much as I love Azure Standard, the driver for this side of our state is not interested in coming here because we're so remote. That's why we don't have a drop point here, because he doesn't want to drive here. I understand that, you know, and that's not, and we've dealt with this in other things too. It's like when people realize how far out Forks is, Forks, Washington. No, it's funny, Twilighters don't have a problem coming here all the time. Twilighters all the time coming through our town. But yeah, when it comes to something like that, obviously they got to make it worth their money. I get it. But we weren't even given any reason, not really any good reason. And I think, so the things that bother me the most about this is not so much it just not working out. If it wasn't going to work out, just be honest and tell us. If for whatever reason it's not going to work out, just be honest. That's all I wanted. But to just basically ghost us, you know, just stop talking to us and then pass us back to this other person who wasn't really giving us the answers that we were looking for, and then didn't even bother to call us like was promised. And, you know, months later, still waiting. Now, maybe they forgot, and, you know, that happens. Life gets busy, and we all, you know, we tend to forget things like that. But I do honestly believe they just decided they didn't want to work with us, and they were just hoping they could just kind of get us to hopefully just forget about it and just move on, which we did have to do. I mean, we've got all this roof on our shop full of solar panels that were going unused. I mean, yeah, they're still collecting solar power, but there was no battery bank for them to go into, because when we had to rebuild that room, obviously we had to take all of the batteries out, and Patrick tested all of them. About half of them were junk, and the rest of them we gave to a friend that's wanting to set up a much smaller solar setup at their place, assuming that within a week or a couple weeks we were going to have some new batteries coming. And it never happened. And we waited and waited and waited. Now, the reason we have solar power now, and we actually have a better battery bank than we had now, was because a couple of years ago, Patrick found some used batteries, I think through Facebook Market, that were a better kind of battery than the golf cart batteries that we were using. They held more, they had a better power reserve, and there's just a lot about them that were better. I don't know all the logistics on that, but if you're interested in more on that, Patrick did do a video more recently bringing those batteries over and getting them all set up so we could actually use our solar power again. Because, you know, we made this investment, we want to use it, we have it for a reason. But the purpose of those batteries when he bought them a couple years ago, we're planning on building a cabin on one of our other two pieces of property, a completely off-grid cabin, and we were going to use those batteries to be our battery bank for those. So now we don't have that battery bank anymore. And, you know, obviously we're going to be keeping our eye out for some deals yet again. Hopefully we can get something better. But I mean, the good news is that it is nice having more space in that room. And by bringing those batteries over, I don't know if they'd be as good as the setup we would originally have gotten, but by bringing those over, we do have a much better battery bank than we did previously, prior to all of this mess. Anyway, I lay that whole story out because I think it's important that before you look into or don't look into a company, I don't want to give any one company a bad name. You know, maybe there was a really good reason, and maybe they have really good product. But to me, the absolute shutting off of communication is poor business. I mean, that's just not how you treat people if you're wanting to have good business. So that concerns me, which is why I feel I need to be honest. So I'm just going to go ahead and say it. The company is Lion Energy. Now, again, there may be other circumstances, you know, I don't want people going on there and getting on YouTube and saying a bunch of bad things about them, because there may be other circumstances that we simply do not understand because it's not being communicated with us. And they may have very good reason. We just have no idea. We've heard a lot of good stuff about them, about their product at least. They seem like really nice people to deal with. up until the time came for them to actually bring out what they promised. And then all of a sudden, we no longer exist to them, I guess. And it does kind of sting a little bit. It kind of smarts. I think it's really poor business to treat people that way. I know we're not the biggest channel out there, but we've worked hard to get where we're at. And, you would think that they would want to have good relationships with us and at least be honest and talk to us rather than totally ignoring us. So I say all this because I know a lot of people who are thinking of going solar, just like with the freeze dryers. Learn all sides of a story before you make an investment, because this is just our experience. Maybe most everyone else who's dealt with them has had really great experience and, again, a great product. We just don't know based on our own experience. That's all we have to share. So I don't like giving companies a bad name, but I also believe in being honest, and at least based on what we know, which I feel there's still a lot that we just don't know. This is why I've been very reluctant to even share the name. Don't be afraid to at least look into them. Just ask them some questions. Just say, hey, this is what we want. This is what I'd like to do. Are you guys going to keep communicating, or are you going to decide to suddenly change your mind and not tell me why? I mean, whatever, but watch these other channels that might be putting in the same the same brand of stuff, and maybe ask them directly, even email them directly and say, hey, what's your take on this? Not just what you hear in the channel, see on the channel, but what is your take? I mean, just tell me, what have you had any issues? I want the whole story. As hard as this is for me to do, I just feel that, just like you go to Amazon and you read reviews and you'll hear bad reviews, you see good reviews, or any other place, and you weigh it out according to both sides of a story, and you might see some bad reviews that you're just like, that doesn't apply to me, and that could be the case here. If you want a really good product and you've heard really good things about this product, then that might be the way for you to go. Just understand this was our experience. And personally right now, as much as Patrick keeps hoping that maybe they'll follow through on their word, I'm kind of to a point where I'm done, because I don't even know if I want their product now because of the way they've treated us. It was good dealings. It was good, nice, positive interaction back and forth. It's just that it stopped. It just came to a screeching halt. And what do you do? So, but like I said, the good news is we made it work. And sometimes you can get the best deals just looking for things secondhand. And if we were to buy all that and pay cash for it, it would have cost us way more than what it costs us to do what we did, even with the expansion of the room. And we got some decent batteries, and there were a couple in there that were bad when we got them, unfortunately, but still, for the price that we paid for all of those batteries, definitely a much better deal. So remember too, if you're looking into something seriously, that's a big investment. Just even if it's a freeze dryer, I've heard plenty of stories of people getting freeze dryers used because somebody gets it, decides they really don't like freeze dried food or whatever, and they sell it for cheap, and now they've got a great freeze dryer. So don't forget, you can look for even solar setups secondhand, or at least batteries that might still be great batteries. They're just no longer needed for whatever the purpose was. So there's my take on it. If you'd like to learn more about our solar power, how we use it, and the other things that we do that don't depend on solar power, I'll put a couple of different videos down below that you might find interesting. And yeah, share your thoughts, ideas, and I hope I'm being fair. I kind of feel like I've been more than fair as long as I've let this drag out, but I still feel bad even saying that. But this is our experience, and I just feel like I gotta be honest. So anyway, I hope you found this video helpful. Thanks for watching. Take care, and God bless.